Have you ever gone through a season, or maybe you're in one right now, where you felt like you're taking all this action and nothing is really working out? It's like that analogy of pushing a boulder uphill and it feels exhausting. And maybe you're wondering, is this a sign from the universe that I'm totally not on the right track? Or is this a season of growth and I'm supposed to just keep pushing that boulder uphill? So we're going to go deep into that in this episode. I'm going to help you get really clear on which season you're in, a season of surrender or a season of growth, and how to really navigate between the two. Hey there, I'm Lisa. I am one of the co-founders of Rise Leadership Circle, where our mission is to expand you into owning new levels of your value, of owning your personal power, and of your worth so that you can become well-paid and prosper. Let's go ahead and jump in. In this episode, I'm going to do things a little bit differently than I typically do on the YouTube channel, and I'm really going to record this one true podcast style because I really just want to riff with you today on some things that are coming up that I'm seeing happening around me. And I feel like it's a message that's really relevant for right now because I see people suffering, being afraid to actually change course when a decision they've made in the past is no longer feeling aligned for them. So how do you know? How do you know if you should switch course or if you should just really double down and be, determined to make it happen? So one of the ways I help my clients process this is something else I've worked on in my own life as well, is I tune in because there's a real dark side to determination to receive success at all costs. And I think that's something that in the personal growth industry, a lot of coaches will tell you it's very much in that action-driven energy that you need. If you want to succeed, you've got to be fully in it, success at all costs, no back doors, and no matter what, you've got to make it happen. Now, that message in and of itself isn't necessarily wrong. I do think that we need to be fully committed to our dreams in order for us to make that happen. However, when we're suffering for success, when we're completely out of alignment with our own truth, and it's creating this sense of suffering or sickness or all kinds of issues are coming up in our life, that's when we know, okay, we're in the dark side of determination. Actually, what's happening here is a sense of ego driving the bus, the ego wanting to succeed at all costs, and it's overriding the guidance from your soul, from your higher self. So a lot of people in the last couple of years have been going through a spiritual awakening. And I know a lot of people that follow us have had their own version or their own journey of going through, what they would call an awakening in a sense. And they're starting to see the world a little bit differently maybe than in the past. And a lot of times when this happens, this was the case for me, it was like looking around at some of the choices I was making and things that I was doing and pursuing in my life that no longer felt in alignment. Now, it doesn't make those things bad or wrong. It was just that internally, I had really shifted inside and began to really receive, to tune into my intuition. And I realized that I was always being guided towards new levels of really being my true self, like in a sense, who I came to be. And maybe you can relate to this as well. And so when we begin to start to tune in to our intuition, into the higher self, if you will, whatever your belief may be, it's really going to be loud and clear when we're not listening to it. So I just was in a conversation with someone this week who had made a decision about something that she thought she wanted to do. She was pursuing a career path that made a lot of sense on paper. The money was really good. It was in her zone of excellence, meaning it was something she could do and she could do it well. And it made a lot of sense. However, once she took the job and jumped in, she was absolutely miserable. She was in a space of being really, really unhappy with her job, feeling really unfulfilled, and going through, quite frankly, a lot of emotional distress. And so we had a conversation, and she shared with me that she felt that she needed to stay the course because she had made this choice. And that if she were to quit the job, she feared that she would be disappointing a lot of people, including herself. And so we unpacked it a little bit, right? I can relate to this. Perhaps you can too. Sometimes there's a reason why we want to stay the course of something is because we really fear this idea of failure, or this idea that maybe we're going to let someone else down. And so we stay and we suffer. So this is the dark side of determination, because we can be so determined sometimes to please other people. We can be so determined from the ego perspective to have things look good from the outside that we become frozen and unable to actually make the choice that's in alignment with our higher self. And so in this is an example of how we know when we are truly suffering, meaning we're in emotional distress. We are dreading, maybe going to the job, or dreading doing the thing, even if it's, some people have started their own business and later realized it wasn't aligned for them. We're in a space of dread. That's a sign that we are out of alignment. And if we choose not to listen to that alignment, your higher self is going to get louder and louder. So a lot of times this can manifest like a physical illness. You start to get frequent colds, or it's a back pain, or it's neck pain, or you find yourself going through a period of depression, or, I've even seen it manifest into actual like physical things are breaking down in the house, all kinds of things. When we're not listening, the soul is going to get louder and louder and louder until you finally have no choice. And sometimes we're so stubborn, that's what it takes, right? That we actually need to have something completely fall apart before we're like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and let go. But it doesn't have to be that way. Your wise guidance, your higher self, is always going to be, in a sense, guiding you towards where you're meant to be. And I'm not saying this is the easier path. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the smoothest or the easiest. Sometimes it might even be the harder path. But what I have noticed is that there's a sense of alignment, and it's alignment to the truth of who we are. And sometimes I say this is the harder path because maybe nobody else gets it. Maybe you're just waking up to the truth of who you are. And honestly, I'm in my 50s. I see this a lot of times with women who are my age as we start to, we've raised our family, we're into this empty nest. And it's like, finally, we have the time to really think about, who am I now? And we begin to wake up to ourselves. And this can happen at any age. I'm just saying, I see this happen a lot at my ages. It's like, it's this beautiful new beginning energy. And I love seeing it come alive so much. And if we're willing to listen to it, sometimes it's the harder choice, because maybe the people in our life don't get it. Maybe you suddenly have decided that you want to pursue your spiritual journey and you feel called to become a healer. And it's the farthest thing from, what you did in your previous job, and your family doesn't get it. Or, it's just creating some kind of friction. And so we fear taking that route. Yet, if that's the truth of who you are, if that's truly who you're meant to be, that calling is going to get stronger and stronger. And if you ignore it, you're probably going to become more and more miserable. So that's how you know when it truly is time to surrender, to let go of the path you're on. It's almost like the universe, in a sense. I've been shown the image of like, the universe, in a sense, is just going to shake your hands until you finally like let go, in a sense, right? It's this idea of just like, oh, okay, I just have to let go of this thing that I've been gripping onto so that I can actually become more of who I've meant to be. So it's scary. There can be a lot of fear. The other thing that can come up a lot of times is this fear around disappointing people. And I think that disappointment is an underrated emotion. We fear disappointment. We don't want to disappoint ourselves. We don't want to disappoint other people. And I feel honestly like this emotion to me ranks right up there with our desire to not feel shame. We want to avoid it at all costs. But here's the thing, when you truly are being guided by your higher self is not afraid to feel any of these so-called negative emotions. There's a lot of wisdom in our full emotional experience. So I know we talk a lot about manifesting and law of attraction, and we feel like we need to be in this high vibrational space all the time. And we fear that if we experience an emotion like disappointment, it's going to completely take us off our path and it's going to mess up our manifesting. But that's not true. The truth is, your willingness to feel disappointment, to feel all of the emotions without being attached to them, without being like pummeled over by them, will actually help you get back on track and manifest even faster. Why? Because there's so much wisdom in tuning into our feelings and tuning into our emotions and asking ourselves, what is this about? What am I actually disappointed about? Can I be okay with the fact that maybe some people in my life might not understand me, but if they love me, they're going to want me to be the truth of who I am? True love is always going to pursue the highest for everyone involved. And so sometimes we've got to be on that brave journey. And so, we talked about this, I think, in my last video. It's a sense of expansion, right? That pulls us. We talked about being in the zone of trust. If you haven't listened to that, you can go back and take a listen. But it's this sense of operating in this expansive place. And it can be really scary. It can require us to do something new. And so that's a season of growth, right? We're in a season of growth when we're required to do things we've never done before. And the way that we get there is by taking a step forward. Sometimes the only way we know if something is a good or bad decision, or a right or wrong decision, if you will, is by making the choice and taking the step. That's the only way we can truly get the information. And so maybe you've made a choice. It's like, I thought it was this direction, and then I got there and I'm realizing this isn't actually the thing I want. That's okay. You have so much more information now that you've taken that step. So don't be afraid to let go of things on the way to the dream. If you thought that, maybe you hired a coach and you're like, okay, this is the coach that's going to, really help me get there. Or maybe you hired a team member that you felt really certain about and then found out like, this isn't really the right fit for me. It's okay. It's okay to let go. Now you have the information and you're so much wiser. You know exactly what you're looking for. So we have to take it step by step and be willing. But the dark side of determination is when we're so determined for a specific outcome that we want to control, things working out a certain way, that we're really finding ourselves in a space of suffering. That's how you know, because your higher self is not going to guide you through suffering. It's not going to ask you to truly suffer your way there, where you're putting your health at risk, you're having an experience of burnout. That is an indicator that you need to go within and begin to listen and let yourself be guided by God, source, universe. That is going to give you, even if it's scary, even if you're being required to have some experiences of failure and disappointment along the way, it's still going to be expanding you, and you're going to feel like your true self, like you're getting closer and closer to who you really are, even if you're walking through these somewhat scary situations. So this is a way that we can begin to really tap into, becoming the truth of who we are, becoming more of who we're meant to be in the world.